Hello, everyone. Welcome back, E20 Zone TV, and I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend. That is Charlie Walsh. How are you, sir?
I'm not bad, man. I'm not bad. How are you?
All good, mate. All good after yesterday's performance, I must admit. Before we get into the Brentford preview, mate, what did you make of that yesterday?
Ecstatic, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, super happy. I mean, I often get comments on the watch along that I do on Hammers Chat of people going, "You're very calm. You're very calm." Because naturally, when I watch football, I'm a very calm individual. I don't tend to go like when I'm hyped. Obviously, I'm hyped, but I don't tend to like zigzag, whatever. But for some reason, these European games have made me incredibly nervous, unbelievably nervous. And I think it's just that thing of, we've all seen us lose to Astra Jeju and teams like that who we think we should be just steamrolling. And so when we go up against someone like Rapid Vienna, despite all of the odds being in our favor and their form being bad and all this, I get mad nervous. And so to see us come through it and not only come through it unscathed, but to an extent where I don't think yesterday we ever really got out of second gear, and yet we still were very comfortably beating them. I was ecstatic. I was absolutely ecstatic. I can't lie.
I thought it was very professional, mate. We're becoming a very professional club at the minute. We seem to get 2-0 and shut the game down, and we're like the Atletico Madrid of England at the minute. The way we're playing, go a couple of goals up and then just defend it solidly to the end. And I must admit, I thought they played well. Who stood out for you yesterday, mate?
It's good I'm speaking to you at this moment. Ben Rama, I thought was balling. I thought he was so good. And I like you, I've had a lot of faith in him. I've always felt like he was going to be a very, very good player and come through for West Ham in a big way. And yesterday, despite the fact I think he went down easy a couple of times, and that's just something I'm not about in life. Like, he went down and it's not like he wasn't touched, but I was like, it's not going to be a free kick. Every time he got the ball, he was such a huge danger. He was constantly taking the ball past 2 or 3 people, and it never felt lucky. It never felt stretched for him. It just felt like this is just naturally what he's doing. And you watch him play and you go, he's got more to come. There's definitely more to come. Not just in terms of the season. You're like, you could step up a couple of levels here. It feels like that. It feels like that. He was my man of the match. Rice was another big one. Obviously, I thought he had a good game after. I felt like the first half, they pressed him a lot. And out of the two, out of him and Noble, he was the one who sort of came out of that looking pretty good. They put a lot of pressure on both of those, and he was the one who sort of stepped up in a big way. And he got forward when he could, but also importantly, he was mopping up a lot. They were the 2 big ones for me, but also I think it's fair to give a shout out to Ben Johnson, who was my big concern going into that match. I was worried about Ben because I feel like his career and development at West Ham has sort of stalled over the last 6 months or so. I've been a bit concerned and thinking, I don't know if he's going to make it here anymore. Yesterday, he proved me wrong in a big way. I thought he was really, really good. And I'm very glad that the penalty didn't end up going against him, because to be honest with you, I was like, no, he's had such a good game. Don't sully it. And it turned out he didn't. So yeah, those were the 3 for me, but Ben Rama was my man of the match.
Yeah. Ben Johnson, I think when you play him in the right position, which he's a right back, he's not a left back, you get the best out of Ben Johnson. I just don't understand why. He gets a lot of stick, doesn't he, Charlie, really, Ben? When he's on the left-hand side.
And I think unfairly, like you say, when he's playing on the left, and don't get me wrong, I'm equally part of the criticism that he receives when he's on the left, but I don't think it's his fault at all. He's playing on his unnatural side. You can tell he's not got his left foot. He still defends relatively well there. It's not as comfortable, but he still defends relatively well. But getting forward, his forward play is completely hampered by just being on the wrong side, and you can tell. And it's unfortunate because, especially at that age, you want to play them in their strongest position as much as humanly possible, just to get the most out of them. Because it's not like when Beckham is in his 30s and you drop him into a central midfield role that he's never played before, because he's got that experience and swagger that he can do it. It's much the opposite. It's someone who's just starting off their career, and so you want them to sort of be playing at best position. So don't get me wrong, I criticize him just as much as probably anyone else does at left back, but I really want him to get as much game time as possible at right back, because that is the future. And if he plays as well as he did last night, then I don't see any reason why he won't be at West Ham for a long time and potentially be fighting for first team opportunities in the near future, especially with so many games we've got.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'll tell you one player who did do me very proud yesterday was Dawson. I thought Dawson was very good.
Great shout.
Yeah, I thought Dawson was very good, mate. Considering he's come in and let's be honest, Zuma's come in, took his place, and now he's gone back to the bench. I thought he come in and done well, and I think Diop's looking better and better. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. He's like a man reborn, isn't he? He's a Diop. Like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I totally agree. But moving on to Sunday, 2:00 at the LS. Big game, this one. Got a little question for you here, Charlie. This one. How impressed have you been with Brentford this season?
Very. I expected them to be good. I think I've told you this before, but I do have a soft spot for Brentford. I do. My dad's from West London, so when I was a kid, we went and saw Brentford. Not no times. We went to see them quite a few little times, and so this was when they were truly terrible and in League Two, getting battered by people. So to see them come all the way up is amazing. So I had hopes. I had high hopes, and I think more of it was maybe like the soft spot in me going, "Come on, do well," and they have. They genuinely have. I think back to the preseason match we had where we quite comfortably dealt with them, and I was a bit concerned for their future in terms of sticking in the Premier League or whatever. But they just keep surprising people. I think they came up, they played the right way, quote unquote, but they seem really comfortable, and I think that's just a really good indictment of their transfer policy, their backroom staff, everything they have there in terms of not just on the field, their entire process, because they don't look that out of place. They don't look that out of place.
And what they do well is they go and data on players. Like a player's not a name. They seem just to go and get a player from somewhere like no one's heard of. You only got to look at Ben Rama, for instance. Who would have known about him? And I think he was playing in like France in League One, or I think it was, or League Two or something. Yeah. So they go and data, and it's like, and what they do, they turn a lot of their players into sort of like well beaters near enough. Like some of their players that they've had through their ranks, like Ollie Watkins, they've obviously got Ivan Toney now, we're going to get on to in a minute. But yeah, I must admit, I agree, mate. Brentford have been very good this year. And they will stay up. They will stay up comfortably. I think they'll finish about 12th or even higher than that. I think they're that good. They pushed Liverpool all the way. But let's get on to this, mate. Brentford's danger men. They've got a few. Take it away, Charlie.
Yeah, they do have a few. I mean, the big one is obviously Ivan Toney. Everyone knows about. He's just a really good mobile forward who is going to cause us a lot of issues. He's going to be right up in our centre backs' faces and giving us problems in that sense. But it's not just him. He has a great relationship with Mbeumo on the right, who I was concerned wasn't going to be able to take a step up to the Premier League. I've seen him play in the Championship. I thought this kid's really good, but I was looking at him thinking, is he going to be able to do it consistently? And I think he probably will. Like, he's really good on the ball. He's fast, and they have a really nice relationship that works, which I was shocked to see works because, again, like you say, they do have a big turnaround of players at Brentford, and Ivan Toney isn't Ollie Watkins. They are very different players, and so to just see them just take him and blop him in, yeah, we got it, and it works, and we figure out the system around it, and it works, and we just carry on as we were, is really impressive. And the other one, I mean, someone I know you're a big fan of, Rico Henry at left back. I think he doesn't. The thing is with Rico Henry is I've always felt like when we were linked with him, I like him a lot, but I've always felt like he's just not defensively best. He's not the best left back you're ever going to see defensively. He's certain better going forward than he is defending. And Brentford have changed to a 3 at the back system, which I think really suits him. It allows him to sort of have that wing back play that, say, suits Ryan Fredericks better or Arthur Masuaku better. And when you look at Rico Henry at the moment, getting forward, I mean, talking about our right back, whoever ends up playing there is going to have a trouble with him and whoever else plays on the left for Brentford coming at them, because that is dangerous. And the one person he's not necessarily a danger man, but he's someone I really like. And I don't think he hasn't played enough, but whenever I've seen him, I thought he's been really good. Is Onyeka, the centre back the centre mid they brought in this summer. I think he's really accomplished, and I think he's one of the people who's at the start
Denmark,
of their journey.
Is he from Denmark? Oh, Midtjylland, I think it was.
I think it was Midtjylland, but it was. Yeah. He's one of those people where like he's at the beginning of his Brentford journey. He's not like Toney or Mbeumo or Henry, who's been there a while, so he's not completely settled. But I think he's just got everything, man. I think in at the end of this season, end of next season, depending where they go, he'll probably be linked to a lot much bigger teams, because I really like Onyeka. I think he's got a lot to come.
Mm. I must admit, I agree with what you're saying there. With a few of them players, obviously Rico Emery, I do like. I think he's quality. Obviously, Umbermo was part of the famous BMW. Umbermo, Watkins, and Ben Rama.
Mhm.
And I must admit, he sort of got better. He got faster and all. I
Yeah.
didn't really think he would. I agree with you. I didn't think he had cut it in the Premier League, but he has.
Mm.
And obviously, Ivan Toney, mate, who we all would love at West Ham. How do you think West Ham will deal with him, Charlie, Mr. Toney?
I mean, I think relatively well. It's something we spoke about on the Hammers chat preview. I think it's going to be all right to an
Hmm.
extent. I think they play a style that suits us, and I think as much as he will give a lot of issues to Ogbonna and probably Zuma, I suspect will start. Like they're big boys. They're able
Hmm.
to handle themselves in physical battles pretty well, and at the same time. They're going to have a lot of people around them. I mean, one of the things that I've been most impressed by is no matter who we're playing this season in terms of our 11, no matter be it our first 11 or be it our second string 11, the defensive organization is really good. Has always been there and is really solid. We get really compact, we get really tight. You can see the lines. It's basically as good as you're ever going to see. It's as good as you want, right? And so he's not going to have huge amounts of space. And so no matter who he tries to pull onto, I think they'll be able to physically challenge him, and B, they're going to have backup around him, around them to help out if necessary, if he does manage to do something, or Bremo gets the space, or whoever it might be. So yeah, I think it's going to be difficult. Don't get me wrong. He's
Hmm.
one of the he's one of the forwards that you don't see too much of in the Premier League right now. Just a big physical guy who's going to come in and just beat you up,
Hmm.
basically. But I think we've got what it takes. I think we've got the right centre backs. You know.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I did notice with him against Liverpool is they seem to play the long ball to him to win the headers onto Umbrella.
Yeah.
So if we can stop that sort of threat over the top, and Zuma, I think Zuma will take care of Tony on Sunday. I really do. But obviously, what do you make of their manager? I think their manager's brilliant, mate. Really do.
Yeah, I do as well. And he's not he consistently evolves it as well. It's not a case where
Mm.
it's not like when Allardyce comes in and he has one system and he's always going to play that system no matter what. Like he did change it up to the diamond, to be fair to him, for half a season, but the rest of the time it's very much exactly what you're going to get. He's changed stuff up at Brentford quite a bit. They've played 4 at the back, they've played 3 at the back. When they play 3 at the back, they play more attacking. It's not like R3 at the back, for example. They do change things up. I've been really impressed, and it's their recruitment of their managers is almost as good as their recruitment of players. They've gone for a
Mm.
succession of really decent managers, and it shows. It's never people that you hear too much of before, but then they go on to do really well at Brentford and prove themselves further afield as well. So I think he's done really well. I think he's done really well. Again, I was a part of them jumping up. I was like, how are they going to adapt?
Mm.
They signed Ayer as a centre back, and they've got this 3 at the back system going now, and it seems to be working really well for them. I'm really impressed.
I must admit, I can't believe how well they've adapted. Like it seems like that they've they've been in the championship. They lost in the playoff final last season, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
then the season they won. I think they got to the playoff final again. They won that time, didn't they? So
Yeah.
in 2 years they've had a failure, and then they've managed to get over the line. But it's like they've been building for the last, say, 3-4 years as a Premier League team in the Championship to
Yeah.
get in the Prem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah. No, they've been. I mean, because they've been in and around. They've been in and around the promotion places for a long old time at this point.
Yeah.
You're talking 5, 6, 7 years almost. They've been trying to fight for promotion. Maybe not that long. Probably like 5 years. They've been trying to fight for promotion, and it's always been a case of coming close but never quite making it. But like you say, it shocks me because often when you see teams playing the right way, they often get battered when they get to the Premier League. Look at Norwich, for example. They're a great example of a team who just get absolutely blapped when they come to the Premier League, despite not doing the sort of all-out defense, survive if you can sort of thing. But they just seem to have what it takes, and I think that's part of their recruitment. I think they've been in and around the promotion places for 5 years, but they've been recruiting knowing that we need people who, when we get to the Premier League, aren't going to look instantly out of our depth. They're not buying people who are going to do it in the Championship. They're buying people who are going to succeed in the Premier League when they get that opportunity. And I think
they're
that's a
buying
huge...
They're buying youth, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look how
You know what
young
they're
some of their players. Yeah, look how young some of their players are. Like, because one of them is Canas, is it Sergio Canas? Is it?
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sergio Cano.
yeah. But I think he come from Liverpool. I think. Like
Yeah.
Liverpool.
I can't remember if was it Liverpool. Yeah, probably. I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they've just turned these players into sort of like Ivan Toney. I remember Ivan Toney at Northampton, Peterborough, and he's sort of gone. He's done the Jamie Vardy route basically, and but it just seems like they take Ollie Watkins out of that team, and they kind of replace him with Ivan Toney. It's like, how'd you do it?
Yeah, and the thing is, they buy these youth players, like you say, like Tony or Mbeumo or Benrahma when they had him, or Canos. These are all great examples. Henry, another good example of people they buy who are youth players who they know can make the step up, and they invest in them early. They invest in them early doors, so they're paying next to nothing. I mean, I remember, for example, when we had Jed Searson on Hammer's chat, we had the scout, a former West Ham scout, who was talking about he recommended Benrahma to West Ham when he was in France, and it would have cost them $1 million, $2 million max. And then obviously we wait until he's succeeded in the Championship, and all of a sudden he's 20 something million, right? And it's because of that, like Brentford, they know what they're doing. It's, despite the fact it's not that much money, they're taking smart bets. And if a player doesn't work out, that's fine. It's cost you $1 million, whatever. We move on. If it does work out, all of a sudden that $1 million turns into 10 million, 20 million, whatever it is. But at the same time, they also do buy other older, more experienced heads. It's just in the important positions where they know they need to. They build a whole squad. So you look at someone like Janssen, who they signed from Leeds, the centre-back, who isn't young by any stretch of imagination. And Leeds were like, well, why have we sold Janssen to Brentford? Like, that was a bad move for us when they were in the Championship. And it just shows that they sort of know what they're doing. If they look at their centre-backs and they go, right, we need a more experienced head in centre-back position, we'll go and find the right guy. And it's someone who comes in and instantly picks up where he left off. And there's other people like Pinnock, right, who's a doubt for this weekend, but a centre-back, who I thought has been really good. And I was shocked he's been so good because he came from lower leagues as well. And I was like, really? At that age? Because he's not young either. He's like...
He's from, if I remember rightly, he's from Forest Green. Come from Forest Green Rovers. Yeah.
I didn't know his exact career path. I remember him coming from the lower leagues. But when I saw it happen, and they're buying this lower league centre-back who's in his mid to late 20s at that point. So it's not like you're buying Rico Henry at 19 or whatever. I was like, okay, but he's just come in and almost made a start. And the fact he's actually missing this weekend, I think potentially missing this weekend, I think is a huge benefit to us because they just sort of know what they buy so smart, and it makes me jealous every day a little bit.
Do you think though, because what it is, Brentford haven't got a youth system, have they? They haven't got a under 23 team. What it is, they recruit within. And basically, their 25-man squad is basically made up, or they might have 30 players there. They haven't got I read up on something. They haven't got a youth system, basically, because all they do is they go on the data of players. They just bring in players they need, so to speak. Yeah. And just concentrate on that.
Yeah, and it's the thing is of like... Sorry, my mum was phoning me. It's the thing is of... It's the idea of like... she's heard me talking about Brentford. She's like... No, it's the thing of like... They've had to build that club from scratch. They really have. Like when I was going to watch them when I was a kid, they were in League Two. They were struggling. The stadium was falling apart. Like it really was the doldrums of like just sheer survival in the English league. And when they've bought them, they have built them, but slowly through smart decisions in the market. Obviously, the Moneyball thing, they know what they're doing. He owns Michelin's, like he's clearly done it before. And youth academy is one of those things where it's like, it's a lot of money, but it's also a super long-term investment. Whereas if you're looking to try and get up as quick as you can, buying people who are 19, 20 can actually do it, but it's just a case of you'll also make a lot of money off the back of it. Whereas I think youth development is one of those long-term things. Eventually, when they do it properly, you know they're going to do it properly and it's going to be a grand old time because they have the right smart football people in the right smart football places to make the decisions they need to. But yeah, they've built through smart decisions in the market as opposed to anything else, because it's that short-term goal of growing the club or getting to a club to a stage where you can make as much money as possible, kind of thing. And they've nailed it.
Do you think Brentford are under no pressure though in doing that though, Charlie? Like, because what it is, there's no expectation on them, so to speak, so they can sort of, how can I put this? If they did say they got relegated, none of their fans would be hating on them because, like, it's Brentford. That makes sense. If West Ham was to adapt that style, I don't think us going out and buying young players and expect, like, we would want them to bed in straight away rather than buying people for the future, say.
Yes, and I also I do think there's no pressure, and I think the other difference is they buy people to solve issues before they happen. So if you look at say Tony was at the club 6 months before Watkins left. He was already there. They had it ready. They had it prepped. They knew what was sort of going on, right? And they consistently do that, you know. And Bremo was there before Ben Rama left. He was already part of that system, right? So when Ben Rama leaves and he takes up a bit more of the slack, he can do it. It's that kind of idea of solving the problems before they become problems. And I think at West Ham, we have two things. I do think we put a little bit too much pressure on new signings when they come in, and we sort of expect the world from them off the bat. And part of that is because we've had people in the past like Payet who have done it instantaneously and been the best thing that's ever happened. But also part of it is like we just need to sort of chill a little bit with that. We seal it with, for example, I think, again, talking to you about it, Ben Rama was someone who had way too much put on his plate way too quickly because of numbers. And I think maybe something similar, a little bit similar is happening with Vlasic, although I don't think his performances have been as good as Ben Rama's were early doors, but you understand what I'm saying. The other thing is, a lot of the time we're buying people to solve problems that we have right now this second. And that's kind of that future planning aspect of, you know, a lot of the time we aren't buying to replace people. I think Brentford are so smart that they're going to replace, say, you look at Tony, right? When they know at some point they are going to sell Ivan Toney. It's going to happen. And so they've already bought people to replace that player once he goes. So they can get the most amount of money because they don't need to sell him because they already have a backup. And when that backup goes, they know he's going to step up and it's going to be all good. Yeah. Whereas we're like, we need a right back now. And it's like always a massive panic. Which is it's just smart long-term planning, isn't it? And that's why they don't have that pressure. And like you say, to an extent as well, they're coming up and it will be, I would highly doubt their system, their finances and everything. I highly doubt they have next season we will be in the Premier League. I would be shocked if they aren't already thinking, right, we need to plan as if we're going down, because that way we know exactly what our finances are, instead of going, right, we're staying up, we can spend this much and then be screwed when we go back down again, sort of thing.
I agree there. And I'll ask you this before we move on to sort of predictions and what you think the starting lineup will be, etc. But, you know, like, the coaching there, though, must take a huge amount of credit for this. Like bringing players in who, for small fees, and even people who have going nowhere in their career, like Canas was going nowhere at Liverpool. I'm sure he was at Liverpool, if I remember rightly.
I'm pretty certain he was as well. I'm pretty certain he was, to be fair.
And he was at Liverpool. He's going nowhere. He's going out on loan. Brentford pick him up, and he's one of their top players. Obviously, Rico Henry was at Walsall. Like, Pinnock was at Forest Green. I'm sure he was at Forest Green. And obviously, they pick up these players from nowhere and just turn them into sort of really top-class players. Even their goalkeeper last weekend against Liverpool was absolutely first class. And I'm thinking, where have you got this geezer from? Like, we had Roberto in goal on stage. So, do you know what I mean? So I think their coaching staff must take a huge amount of credit for that.
Definitely. And it's that, again, it's having a system that's all one. It's all it's a cohesive whole. So it's not like, you know how we are. We get a manager and then we go to the next manager who's completely the opposite of the last manager. And again, we're getting that manager once it's so bad that the other manager has to leave. Pellegrini, it went so poorly that there was no other choice other to sack him. At that point, we're like, who's available? There's no steps in place. And because they have a holistic unit where everyone knows what they're doing and it's run by smart football people, it means that when their manager leaves, they already know who their next manager is, which means when they're buying players, they can buy people who suit everyone involved. And so you get everyone raising their levels. They are better than the sum of their parts because of that, because they're smart, because they think ahead for 5 seconds, which is
Yeah.
something hopefully we'll do now we have Newman in place. Obviously, that's the big thing for us, is hopefully that allows us to have that smarter way of thinking going forward. And like you say, I think it's easy to be said that, like, oh, it's smart buying and selling and all that stuff, because it is, but at the same time, like you say, there is also the case of when they're here, they still have to do it.
Yeah.
And they consistently do it. Brentford don't tend to miss too much, when they bring people in, they always tend to be relatively successful. So that's a massive credit.
I've got to give them huge credit, mate. There's certain clubs in the Premier League who you think not really cut out for it, but Brentford are one of them clubs who definitely deserve to be here. But moving on to this, Charlie, predictions, yes. And I'm going to ask you your prediction on our starting lineup first, mate. So fire away. What you think?
I believe Fabianski will start in goal. I think he'll stay. I think he'll regain that place. I'm really happy, by the way, with our goalkeeper situation at the moment. We've got 2 goalkeepers who I don't think have done poorly enough to be dropped at all, but they're both playing well enough to continue being first choice, and that's nothing but a massive good thing for us right now. Game. But I do think Fabianski will come back in. I think, to be honest with you, it'll be much of the same. I mean, I think we'll see Cresswell, Zuma, and Ogbonna at centre, Ogbonna in defence. I think the only question there will be right back, and that will be, is Kufal fit enough? If he is fit enough, then I suspect Kufal will come in. If he's not, then Ben Johnson will play. My opinion is, if I was David Moyes, if there's even a lingering doubt about Kufal, like say you ask the physio and he goes, well, he might benefit from being out for another week. He's out for another week. Just let him rest, because we've got so many games coming up and I trust Ben Johnson enough to make it work. And Fredericks just seems to be out of the picture anyway. So I think that will be the way to go, but I think Moyes will play Kufal regardless. And then after that, Rice, Souček, Benrahma, Fornals, Bowen, Antonio, I think it almost picks itself. I think it will be the strongest side possible. Because I think out of them, I think we'll play our strongest 11 possible. I think we've seen sort of our priority is probably Premier League as opposed to Europa League. And that's not to say the people in the Europa League are worse or aren't as good or have been struggling or anything like that, because I don't think they have been. I think they've been brilliant. But I just think you see the strongest 11 is the 11 we're playing in the Premier League, and I suspect it'll be the same again here.
I agree. But there's one player in that 11 who should have had a rest, and that's Souček, mate. What do you think about that?
I think Souček is... How do I word this? Souček. So last season we were playing a formation which allowed Souček to get forward a lot. Because we were playing this 3 at the back. We were playing a 5-2-3 or 3-4-3 or however you want to word it, right? But that meant Souček had a lot of freedom to get forward and get back. And 2 things have happened since then. The first thing is that we've changed formation. We've changed to a 4-2-3-1. Benrahma's playing directly ahead of him most of the time. Or someone else. It floats around, but I would say Benrahma is the predominant central player in that formation. And that means that he just doesn't have the space to get forward in the way he did. Because it wasn't like he was getting forward on the edge of the box and doing all these amazing playmaking things like David Silva in his prime. No, his ability was getting in the box at the right time to finish it off, to get one-touch goals, basically. And with extra people ahead of him, it's 4 instead of 3. That kind of hampers that a lot. And the second thing is that Rice is continuing his development into a more of a box-to-box midfielder than a sitting midfielder, right? And although I think in the last game we saw him sweeping up a lot and doing a lot of that, he is more going box to box. And I think when you have a 2 system as opposed to 2 with 3 behind them, there's a lot less cover there. And so one of you really does have to stay back. You don't have the luxury of getting forward and 3 centre backs or wing backs trying to protect you. No, one of you really does have to sit. And out of the 2, it's very clear that he's been told, right, you're going to be the one who has to sort of play a little bit more conservatively. And that's not really his game. He's not a playmaker. He's never been the best passer of the ball ever. And that's kind of been the issue, is we're playing him in a position now where outside of the defensive duties, his main role is playmaking. And that's not his bag at all. Really, out of the 2 of them, he should be the one going forward. But obviously, Rice is the one who's taking leaps and bounds towards development. Why do you have to allow it? So,
are we getting the best out of him, though, Charlie?
Oh, no, we're not. Not at all.
Do you know what I mean? Because like last season, he was like hot property. And this season, he's just... not. Do you know what I mean? He's gone.
All of our changes have hampered him massively.
Yeah, it seems like to me that I don't know. He's doing Rice's job, and Rice is doing his. And if you had a toss up between him and Rice, who would you rather score the goals? I'd go for Souček all day long. Like, even though I love Rice, and I love Rice to bits, but I just look at Souček. I think aerially, I don't know. It's just something not there. Like, I don't know whether he needs a rest or he's like. Because don't forget, he had the Euros, and you had like a month's rest, like, or 3 weeks rest, and then was back in the Premier League. Like, so, and we've also had the internationals and all. So.
And I need more than 3 weeks rest after like running for the bus once. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was running non-stop, covering every blade of grass. I think every change in reality has hampered him massively. And it's a shame because we were on shows last season where I was talking about how I think he's more important than Declan Rice was for the side. And that was why, because in the system, he was the vital component. Whereas now he's kind of a spare wheel. But the problem is like, out of all of the people we could play in that position, he's by far the best. And I'm not even saying that in terms of like, I'm not even saying that in terms of he's just the better player. I think in the system, he's still the best player. Alex Kroll might turn into that, sure. But at this point, we don't know. Noble is obviously limited because of his years. And so he still has to be the guy. It's a shame that we're losing out on that. But I think we shouldn't. I try to look at it this way. I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that even though he's being hampered, the act of him being hampered is allowing everyone else to succeed massively. You know, we're playing a lot more attacking football than we were. We've got more attacking players in, which is giving people like Bowen and Fornals and Ben Rama chance after chance. They're not having to switch out at times. They're all playing like as many minutes as possible. It's allowing Rice the ability to get up and down, and he scored 2 goals from open play with his feet, both with his left foot, in Europe so far this season, kind of because of it. And I sort of don't want to lose sight of that, because as much as like it's frustrating to see Souček be hampered, it's allowing everything else. And like, does he need a rest? I mean, potentially there is certainly some stuff to say he might look a little bit tired, but honestly, he's just the best person to play in that position right now. And it's like, and to be honest, like, I wouldn't mind bringing in Noble in because it's his last season, and I wouldn't mind bringing Crowell in because I have a bit more faith in Crowell than a lot of people do. But if I'm playing Crowell, then I want to see Crowell alongside Souček because they already have that partnership from international. So I'm thinking that's the best way to get Crowell used to playing in the Premier League, is not to just throw him in with someone he's never played with before. And if I'm saying Noble, you have to pick and choose your opponents. And Brentford, I probably wouldn't play. I think they're just a bit too fast, a bit too saucy, to use a term I didn't know I was going to say until that moment, to put Noble in. So at that point, it just sort of has to, it picks itself to an extent.
It picks itself.
Yeah.
But there's one man I do want to talk about before we sort of come to sort of score predictions and everything. It's Jared Bowen, mate. Obviously, people are very hit and miss with him at the minute, but I'll give you my thoughts quickly, Charlie. I think this boy, it ain't a case of if he scores, it's a case of when. He will score goals. It's just that he looks sharper, faster this season than he did last season. But it's just not, like, you get that striker who just can't hit the back of the net, and then he scores a goal and he goes on a run and he scores about 4 or 5 in a row. Something like that. What do you make of him, mate?
I really like Bowen this season. I think, like, no matter what criticisms you could level at him, and there are definitely criticisms you could say, it's not for want of trying. He has put in a shift like basically no one else has in his team, and that's not an offensive thing to say for the rest of the team. It's just he's been that damn hard working, I've last season I was very critical of Bowen, and there are still some things I would point out, like you say. I do think it's a case of when rather than if he scores as well, but I do think he does have the blinkers on a lot of the time and could find a better pass. There are times where he takes a shot where I'm like, there were options there and you took the wrong one. But even that, I think that's the one criticism I would level at him, to be honest, because I think he's asked to do roles. Yeah. Like, for example, like the striker position, that's not his bag at all. It doesn't really fit him. It doesn't really suit him. And yet he is doing everything he can to try and make it work. And to be honest with you, he's doing all right doing it when he has to. He can't be Mikel Antonio, but he can do as much as he possibly can to try and emulate that. And I think that's pretty impressive, to be honest with you. I really like him this season. To the extent, to be honest, I was like edging on, he might get into the England squad the other night. I thought it was a long shot, don't get me wrong, but I'm in the effort to the extent where you're like, it's difficult to say no to him. I really like him this season. Last season, I was very unsure, whereas this season, I'm back to being like, he's going to be a success at West Ham. And like you say, when he starts scoring, I think it will happen frequently.
Yeah. See, the thing is, when I look at the front four, I done a show on it the other day, funny enough, about the front four, and I turned around and I said that basically they all interact. They've all got their own like roles, so to speak. Like Bowen's got the sharpness, hard working. Fornals is the slick passer. Benny's the trickery, and Antonio's the broad force who just goes through things. And it's sort of, how can I put it? It's not what so much what he's like. Yeah, he could score a goal and all that, but it's his hard working attitude, his pace that helps others. Like how he gets up the pitch so rapid does us a massive favour, because then you've got people like Fornals, Ben Rama, Antonio there. And I actually said to someone the other day on a different platform, I turned around and said, I don't care if he don't score one goal this season, but if he assists 15 goals or he 100%. Helps, like that's as good as scoring a goal, isn't it? In the grand scheme of things. So, I think Bowen's time will come, obviously, and I just feel like he's just been. I think other players are making him look bad because Antonio's playing so well. Like, do you know what I mean? When Antonio's playing well, we all stand back and go, "Wow, look at Antonio!" And what I'm going to say is, Charlie, before we get to predictions on the scoreline, is how impressed have you been with Mikel Antonio this year, mate?
I just don't understand it. I don't get it, bro. You won't find a bigger critic of Mikel Antonio than me. I tell you what, for years, I have given that guy crap. and I don't think unjustly, but there was a point in Hammer's chat where my catchphrase was can't pass sharp, can't shoot, can't cross. Because I don't think he's got it in him. And I look at it and I don't get it, James. I don't understand how he does it. Because, like, I think part of it, honestly, I do genuinely think part of it is he's just closer to the goal, so he can't kick it over as much because it's physically more difficult to do when you're that close. But he just, do you know what it is about Antonio that's really impressive? It's instinct.
Yeah.
Right? Like
100%.
When he doesn't have time to think about it a lot, he does the right thing almost 100% of the time. You know, the assist for Rice's goal was just pure instinct. He only had the time to control it, which was good, and then lay the perfect pass across, and he did it. You know, the goal against Zagreb where he took it round the goalkeeper, it just had to be like that. He had no option. When he has the ball and he has a lot of time to think about it, I often get really concerned and he often picks the wrong thing to do. But when he doesn't have any time, he seems to be the smartest player in the world. And again, I still don't entirely understand how that works, but it does. And I think it's kind of genius because now what we've got, like you say, you're talking about the sort of balance of the front three, front four that we've got going on right now, where they all have different roles and they all have different abilities and stuff. And I think what we're seeing is he's nowhere near as isolated as he has been in the past. Because don't get me wrong, he did really well when he was isolated last season and the bit before that when we survived that season, the half season under Moyes. He did really well then, isolated by himself, where a lot of the time it really was just kick it at Antonio or Lingard when he was here for 6 months and hope for the best. But now he has like these players that are fizzing around him at all times, and he's just acting on instinct, and it's really impressive to see. Because I still don't understand entirely how this happens.
I think he is being coached in a way that people have said to him, right, stay in front of the goal. Because Antonio's negative thing was he used to drift from left to right. Yeah. Like he would always sort of go chasing the ball instead of waiting and making space in the 18-yard box, basically. I've got to admit, the goal at Leeds did impress me because he beat that defender, and how many times, Charlie, would we have said, right, he would have shot that straight at the goalkeeper or over the bar, or he had gone wide, or he would have snatched at it, or he'd have miskicked it or something like that. And he's just, are we getting the best of Antonio now? Like, is he in his prime now? Is he in his prime form? Yeah.
Yeah. It's, do you know what it is? Is I say instinct. I think it's the like quintessential example of a player with confidence. I think when you look at that Leeds game, the Leeds goal, you're like, That is just pure confidence to take the touch around the defender and then to, like you say, kick it. You could have just kicked it straight at the goalkeeper, boot it over, hit it with your left foot instead of your right. No, he just calmly slots it home. And if you're not if you're a bit shaky, if you're not super confident in yourself, you're probably making the wrong decision there and doing something stupid. Whereas he just slots it home. And I think, like you say, I think we're at a stage now where I don't know whether this is his prime as a player in terms of maybe he was physically better. And I do actually think he was faster when we first signed him, for example, than he is now. But what we're seeing now is maybe the best possible use of Mikel Antonio, and that is just a pure instinct forward. And it makes you think. Imagine if we had that 2-3 years ago. It would have been kind of beautiful. Even when he first joined, when we had like Enner Valencia and Saka up front. And look, that's not this Saka. Saka was all right for us. Valencia's less so. But like, imagine if he was the one who was playing that role. If he was the one who was trying to just find the spaces and playing on pure instinct.
I think
he has lost just a touch of pace. Yeah. And he basically doesn't score headers anymore. Like, when was the last time Mikel Antonio scored a header? The first 3 years here, he was basically a header merchant, and now all he does is score with feet.
But one thing I will say with him is that his touch has got a lot better. Like, like when the ball comes into him, like every time the ball comes into it, it's like bounce off him sort of thing. And and it proved it against the Leicester goal. I think it was the first one. And the second one, for instance. I think both of them against Leicester was very, very good. And as I say, mate, I just think we're getting the best out of him. And like, he's one of, like, when people are comparing him to Kane, people see it, they said, "Oh, him and Kane this season, right? Who would you rather have?" And people are saying, "Well, we'd rather have Antonio because Kane's not doing nothing." And I think that's mad for a right back, isn't it?
One of my mates who doesn't like football in any way, shape, or form was making his fantasy football team at the beginning of the season. And he asked me for some help because he doesn't care about football. He was just doing it. He was just doing it for the work thing, for the work group or whatever. And I said, "Put Antonio in." He went, "I've never heard of him." And I went, "Just trust me. Put Antonio in," because I think he had like Aubameyang up front or something like that. And I was like, "Just trust me. I promise you. I promise you." And like now, like every time he scores, I just get a message being like, "Oh, thank you." And I'm like, he has been as good as any other striker has been in the Premier League for a while now. And you can't, as much as I can criticize him for this, that, and the other, and I still probably would to some extent, the results speak for themselves to an extent.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, mate. I really do. And long may that continue. And let's hope he scores on Sunday. Right, Charlie, we're coming to the end now, mate. Give us your prediction for Sunday's game against Brentford. And how do you see it going?
I think it'll be difficult, but I do think we've got enough to put it over the line. I'm very confident. But I'm not. I think at the end, I think I said something to this effect at the end of the Hammers Chat preview. But I think by the end of the game, we'll say two things. We'll say, one, that Brentford gave it as good as they got, and it will be a difficult game. But two, that we deserve the win. And I do think we will get the win. My gut was saying 3-1 win West Ham, but then Gonzo said that, and so I said I couldn't copy him. So I decided to say 2-1. So for consistency's sake, I will say 2-1. But I do think it'll be difficult. I do think it'll be very difficult. And I'm really excited for it, to be honest, because it's the old boxing adage of styles make fights, right? And these are two different styles teams. And I'm looking forward to just seeing them go up against each other, to be honest. I haven't been this excited to watch West Ham on a consistent basis in a long, long time. Yeah. And every match I go into it, I'm like, come on, it's match day, let's go. I get all hyped. Whereas before I was like, yeah, it's calm. But now I'm like, and I'm hyped. I'm hyped.
And I 100% agree with you. It's like when I'm watching West Ham now, I'm feeling very proud to be a fan. There's been times before when I've been watching West Ham and I've been so embarrassed and we've been getting slapped by teams. It's just like, it just doesn't do your morale no good. It gives you, makes you in a positive frame of mind when your team's doing well. When they're not, you're down in the doldrums. But my prediction on this, I think we go through Brentford, no problem. I really do. I think Brentford will come forward because that's the way they play. They're not a defensive-minded team. And I've noticed this season, all the games that we've won, it's all teams that's come forward. Leicester, Newcastle, Leeds, they all like to get on the front foot. And I think Brentford's going to be the same. And I think I just think we're going to go through them. And I actually do think it'll be 3-1. I think Ben Rama will score in this game. I think he's looking better, a lot better. Yeah. He's getting better. And obviously, Charlie, you know me for long enough now, mate. You know I've been backing him for a long, long time. Yeah. And I did say that he will come good in the end. And I think he's getting better slowly. But then I'm also looking at other players who are sort of getting better with him. Like I look at I look at Fornells, for instance, and I'm not, as you know, I'm not Fornells' biggest fan. Like, but I must admit, he's impressed me.
Yeah.
And along with Antonio, no. So yeah, I reckon 3-1, mate. Any final thoughts, Charlie?
I'm just excited to watch West Ham play football. Like literally, my expression. I tweeted it out last night, right? Like, I'm so excited for Sunday. And I'm not like I say, I'm usually a very calm fan, and I enjoy watching football. I watch football a lot. I try to watch as many different teams as possible. I enjoy just football. I love just football. But my God, am I excited to watch West Ham play right now? And that's a huge, huge credit. Again, you know me long enough that I've never particularly been a huge fan of David Moyes. And yet even I'm at the moment going, oh, he's got his team purring, doesn't he? And it's just good times. It's just good times, and I'm trying to enjoy them as much as I can at the moment. And I'm excited to see us play a team that played like Brentford. I think it's going to be an interesting fight, even for the neutral in terms of tactics and everything. I'm just excited, James. I'm just excited.
Obviously, the penalty the other week against Manchester United was a bit of a hiccup, but in the grand scheme of things, he has been near enough perfect and everything. That's the first game we've lost since last season, I think it was.
And even then, like the penalty, Mark Noble's one of the best penalty takers you're going to see at West Ham, and he's one of the best in the league right now. And if you have a substitute free and you have Mark Noble sitting on your bench in a last-minute penalty to get a draw against Manchester United, I probably would have made the same decision. And as much as we can have a conversation about like the idea of like, he wasn't fit, he wasn't trained, he wasn't warmed up, all this stuff, which I do think all comes into play to some extent. Even the best miss sometimes. And I think, unfortunately, that just happened in that occasion. You just have to give him a lot of credit because it's just worked out. And I think part of that is him. I think part of that is the amazing coaching staff he's put around him. Again, I was concerned that losing his number 2 this summer was going to be a big issue. And we've come out of it looking even better than we have. I think that's a massive, massive credit to him. I'm shocked. I am shocked. And I think that honestly, at some point, for example, we will sign a dud. It will happen. But so far it's just not. And I'm more shocked than anyone else because my God, never a fan, James, never a fan. And I've been very public about that. But
I must admit, I must admit, last season, when I was watching West Ham, I think some of the games last season he was very negative, like away from home against Manchester United, against Brighton at home, to 2 that I can sort of remember off the top of my head. Yeah. But this season, it just seems like he's reverted all that. He ain't playing negative now. He's going to go, right, I believe in his team. I think, and I can see him building. He's building something there. Like obviously with Ariola Zuma, that's your spine of your team. You've got Declan Rice in there who's phenomenal. And then you've got Antonio scoring goals. And you know what it's like, Charlie, when you've got a spine of a team, you build around that, and that's what they're doing, I must admit. Charlie, I want to thank you for coming on, mate. I really do appreciate it. And we'll do some more stuff soon. I want to thank everyone in the chat who's been watching tonight, and everyone who's subscribe to my channel. I'm new to this game, but I've been in the game long enough now that I've decided to do it on my own. So if you like my stuff, give it a subscribe, give the video a like. He will be back soon with me. I'll be doing something, probably the player ratings on Sunday. We'll come on and have a chat about the player ratings and all that. If you like my stuff, as I say, subscribe. If you like this video, give it a like. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Let's hope for a positive result on Sunday and before another international break, that's a different story, Charlie. But do you know what I mean? But yeah, take care all. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Subscribe.